welcome. Thank you for joining us. No, I'm just kidding.
That was Chris Emke, and this is Paul Wilson. Thanks for listening to the Diesel Performance Podcast. Chris did not expect that to be our intro today, but it is.
No, I did not. You're welcome, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, we got a little bit different of an episode today. Usually we go through some of our other segments and then the interviews at the end. Today we're kind of flipping the script. We're going to kick it off and jump right into an interview I did with a great fan of the show, Michael Miner. All right, guys, so I have Michael Miner on the line here. He's been a fan of the show for a long time. We've been talking back and forth through email and messages through the podcast Facebook page. What I was just looking back at it for a long time about several different episodes and builds. He's also introduced us to some other really cool people in the industry, so we've had the pleasure of working with them. But I'll stop talking and just say, how the hell are you?
Great, man. It's a nice 98 degrees out here in Texas. Beautiful.
Oh, that sounds brutal. It finally just warmed up here in northern Illinois, and I'll tell you what, the cool down was well appreciated. I think everybody is feeling the heat and the humidity right now.
Yeah, last week it was consistently over 100 degrees, so 98, I'll take it all day long.
Well, hey, I can appreciate that. Now, being down in Texas, you got quite a history with diesel, and we usually like to get our first-time guest on the line here. Just tell us what got you started in diesel performance.
Well, I've been a gearhead all my life. I was born into it. My dad was a hot rodder. And I've always had a fascination with diesel engines because they don't use spark plugs. And I'm kind of self-taught. Joined the military. I was a vehicle operator. Gave me the opportunity to kind of learn a little bit more about how they work and whatnot, especially these old school trucks. And then back in 2010, I bought an 02 Jetta TDI 5-speed and started tinkering around with that a little bit and did some performance modifications. The very first thing I did was put a set of nozzles, ejector nozzles on it.
Sure.
And a larger ejection pump. And it spiraled out of control quickly after that. Unfortunately, that vehicle, I was in a pretty bad accident, and he totaled the car out. I just had one little scratch on me, so I immediately started looking for another vehicle, and that ended up being an 05 Duramax 2500. And it had some modifications done to it already, and I just tinkered around with that. I was putting down about 500 for the tire, and then had a bunch of kids, and pickup truck had to go, and got out of the military, went to UTI, graduated the auto and industrial diesel program, and have worked at different performance shops, diesel shops, stuff like that throughout the years, and yeah, that's where I'm at.
Well, that's awesome, man. That's a hell of a history, and love to hear that you had some experience on the kind of daily driver. Everybody buys a diesel Jetta for fuel mileage. There's no other reason to buy one. So I love that you got in there and started modifying it right away, and then also moving into the LLY. That's a tough truck for a lot of newbies. I'll just be honest. I know I'm going to get some flack for this online, which is fine. Hey guys, I get it. You can fix all the problems of the LLY, but there's definitely a bit of a learning curve to know what to fix and how to fix it right.
Well, honestly, I guess you'd call me kind of new school. I'm only 33 years old. I did my research on a couple of the online web forums when we still had web forums and learned and studied. Like, I know what my price range is. I know what I'm willing to accept and what I can fix and what I'm not. And that's why I settled on that truck in particular. The only issue I ever had was the injection control modules rubbing on the pedestals, and with some electrical tape and a full noodle fix that.
So you're going to walk me through, Michael, maybe not an example, but a kind of mock example, a dream build, if you will. Tell me about it, man. Lay it on me. What is the dream IDI build?
Well, first and foremost, you got to understand, you're absolutely right. It's not going to be a race truck. They back then, diesels weren't meant essentially to go fast. They were just meant to work all day long, hang them up wet and do it again the next day. Secondly, you got to understand how they operate. The best way I can describe it for anybody who's like a gas head is to think of like a flathead V8, where you have the pre-combustion chamber, your fuel is ignited, and then the flame front burns across the top of the piston and then down. So that means compression ratios are really high. And then heat rejection is obviously going to be another issue. That being said, for myself, and being from the military, being in the military, the base truck would be what is called a Cut B, CUCV, which is like an 86 body style, square body Chevy pickup truck. They're rated at 1.25 tons, four-wheel drive, and they originally came with a 6.2. Well, the government, whenever GM got rid of started going to the 6.5, whenever we had issues with the 6.2s, just yanked the engine out and put a 6.5. So that's the base truck. You know, if you got to pull 1.25 tons, is pretty good for essentially what would be a 3/4 ton rated truck. They're naturally aspirated, so there's no turbo on them, and they're kind of dogs. But also another thing about it too is it comes with no emissions. And as we all know, back in the 80s, emissions were a killer. Going from there, it would have to get a set of HS35 turbos, manually controlled wastegate. You don't want a whole lot of boost pressure. What you're after is just the airflow. And that turbo will spool. Those turbos will spool pretty good with that engine. The next thing you got to tackle is the fact that it's got a 3-speed transmission. It's got a turbo 400 transmission, which means you don't necessarily actually get a park gear. You actually have to set the parking brake. So what you do is you get a 4L80E transmission out of like a late 90s, Chevy van or pickup truck. You usually find those at the junkyard pretty cheap. Obviously, if you're getting out of the junkyard, you're going to have it rebuilt. While you're in there, you need to have the output shaft shortened 1/8 of an inch, and you need to bend the dipstick a little bit to get it to fit in there and mount correctly so you can check your transmission fluid. There's a fabbing up a pedestal mount that is 3 3/4 inch longer than the factory one. This allows it to sit properly up underneath the truck. You could do this with 2 pieces of 2-inch square tube and 2 pieces of 3/8 by 2-inch flat plate. You got to move the transmission cross member back about 2 inches. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but if there's somebody who's willing to do the work, it's a labor of love. The stock Turbo 400 and the transfer case shift linkage, all you got to do is extend it 1 inch. It's essentially welding a piece of round stock. After that, you need to lengthen and shorten lengthen the front drive shaft, shorten the rear. From there, obviously you want to keep it cool. So just some 3/8 rubber transmission fluid lines and a B&M supercooler mounted in front of the radiator. You got to control it because it's an electric transmission, and that's a non-electronic truck. So TCI makes a TCM and a harness that comes with the throttle position sensor that mounts to the injection pump. Your RPM signal comes from your flywheel, and like I said, the throttle position sensor mounts on the injection pump linkage. And then you're going to need a gear shift indicator, which you can get off of a late model truck out of the junkyard. Essentially, get it out of your truck you got the transmission out of. Since it's a non-turbo engine, the base engine, right? It's the pre-combustion chamber on the back side of it. It's got a stamp, and it's signified by shape. The non-turbo ones have a smaller hole, which allows for more fuel economy, but it doesn't really allow for power and fuel delivery. So you can pick up a set of what they call the diamond pre-cups. You get them off eBay for like $100. From there, where it gets kind of expensive on it is the injection pump. You have to
hold on. Let me just pause right here. From there, it gets expensive. What about the turbo kit, the turbo mount, the transmission, the custom fabrication? I'm not trying to rain on your parade here by any means. I'm trying to understand the build. So like up until this point, before whatever we're about to dive into, what's a ballpark? What have I spent to build this truck just to this level?
Well, I based the whole build off of a $20,000 budget to include the cost of the truck. All in, you're looking at about $11,000 to $15,000 for everything.
Wow. Okay. I'm sorry. Keep going. So you were saying
the base
from
truck
there
itself is between $4,500 to $8,500.
Right. Which Chris and I were just talking about this just the other day with an older Cummins, with getting a second gen Cummins, and we were saying, for $10,000 you get X truck. It's a little bit different based on what you want out of the truck. So I guess if you're in love with these body styles, I could understand, or I could at least be empathetic to why you would be going down this project. But I'm sorry, let's get back to your parts build here, because I know you're about to dive into something expensive. So what's the expensive part that we're about to jump into?
Well, everything up to there total is about $33,250.
Wow. Okay.
Plus or minus.
Okay.
Obviously minus the cost of the truck.
Sure.
The injection pump is $1,500 by itself.
That's not.
The reason being is you can only get them brand new, and you've got to go to a 6.5 Marine dealer to get it, because it's actually a boat injection pump. The boat engines make stupid horsepower, but that's because they have a lot more capacity for heat rejection.
For the rest of the diesel performance, yeah, I'm just saying, for the rest of the diesel performance community, $1,500 for the pump's not crazy by any means. That's pretty cheap.
The numbers on it, it's a Sandine EV 2831-5722. That pump in stock form is rated at 310 horsepower on the 6.5, with the ability to go up to about 425, 450-ish. And that'll give you all the fuel flow you will ever need out of a pickup truck, because you will overheat it, you will melt pistons if you try and push it much farther than what it can handle. The injectors, the marine style injectors, they're about $470 for a set. Head studs, $162. Head gaskets, MLS head gaskets, $140. The water pump, which would be out of a Humvee, but converted to serpentine drive. The reason being, the Humvee flows a ton more water. $135 for that. You go to the civilian 6.5 trucks that are electronically controlled. They have like a pusher pump or a lift pump that's mounted on the frame rail. You can get one of those from SS Diesel Supply, brand new, for like $80, and just wire it in so that you're helping out that injection pump instead of sucking so hard.
Sure.
Mr. Motor radiator, 768. Another thing you got to worry about is the gearing on these stock trucks and the axles. They're like 410 or higher gears. That's why in the military we can only do like 55 miles an hour before you blow it up. I'd re-gear it to 373s. So front and rear gears, you're looking at about $150 all the way around. For the rear 150, I would obviously convert the rear axle, which is a 14-volt corporate. It's disc brakes converted to, or it's drum brakes converted to disc. That's going to run you about $340 for that kit. Front axle re-gear is 410. And if you like to go off-road or tractor pull or whatever the case may be, that front axle, you can get an E-locker for it for about $1131.
So you've put a little bit of research into this, it sounds like.
I've actually done this build, but not 100% everything on one vehicle. I've done different things on different vehicles. So, yeah, I've done Duramax conversions in Humvees.
So, like, I guess that's my thing, though, right? Is like if I'm looking at my options 10 to 12 10, or 15 to 20 grand or call it 10 to 15 grand of upgrades, right? After I've bought a vehicle, there's not many other diesels out there I could buy for 5 grand. I mean just like trucks, frames, HD frames that I'm going to put a diesel in. It's a pretty limited supply of like finding a good roller, good interior. I mean, that usually is the hardest part of it. And once you do find them, you're generally paying a pretty good premium for them. So I would imagine this is more a guy who ends up with one of these trucks, right? Like if you're on a limited budget, it's like the customer had to be somebody who was like, oh, well, I got one of these somehow, or I ended up buying this because it was very specifically what I wanted. And then I'm now deciding to upgrade it as time goes on, or I guess I could understand that.
Most of the time what will happen is somebody's just looking for an old, let's say, farm truck or like we had talked about, just an old work truck. They don't want to invest a whole bunch of money into it. And they square body Chevy. Everybody knows square body Chevy, you can't kill it. It's got a diesel, so it'll pull, and they don't realize the only way to tell the difference between a civilian truck and that truck is A, the paint that's on it. If it hasn't been repainted, it's essentially chalkboard paint. The 24-volt electrical system on it, and it comes with a brush guard that's flat plate steel. If that stuff's been taken off and it's been converted to 24 volt, there's really no way you can tell. And then you get driving it down the road. Out here in Texas, the tollways is 80 mile an hour, and truck's fixing to blow up, and you're wondering why. Well, you already got your money into it. Like I said, the base truck's $4,500 to $8,500 depending upon where you get it from and the condition it's in. 9 times out of 10, yeah, the interior is jacked up, but there's no carpet in it. It's very, very safe. Manual roll down windows, single cab truck. So you're already going to be looking at trying to make that a little bit more comfortable. Total cost and upgrade, you're looking at $7,100 for 300 to 400 horsepower for $7,000. Total all $15,000. You've got a 400 to 300 to 400 horsepower truck. I mean, it's really hard to beat.
What is that? Well, what does that customer use that truck for then?
I've actually seen guys use them just to drive around daily because as long as you keep your foot out of the steering pedal, they do a pretty good fuel economy.
Sure.
Like I said, guys use it out on the farm to haul hay around or feed the cattle instead of using a $90,000, $80,000 truck. I've seen guys like in Colorado and Alaska use it to get up off in the boondocks somewhere and go hunt an elk or a moose. Because it's a $4,500 truck, so if I bump into a tree, who cares?
Okay.
And there are some people customers that I've had come across me, that they just want an old. They're just one of those people who just want an old truck. They don't want to, I don't want to have to deal with after treatments and all the horror stories that I hear about that and this, that, and the third. And I can't afford a 12 valve or LB7 Duramax that are too expensive. They're outside of my price range. And then the last customer, which is more of a niche market, is guys that, like your Vietnam veterans and stuff like that want that nostalgia. I want to feel like I was back in the day because you can buy these things on the civilian market now. And they just want to take it out on their Sunday drive. And obviously, just like anything else, I know for myself, I can't leave anything alone. I modified my push mower just because I was bored. There's guys out there that'll do that.
I love it.
There's a whole online web forum dedicated to former military vehicles, and you'd be surprised some of the stuff that these guys do with these things. I mean, especially considering there's no real use for these trucks or Humvees, 2.5 tons, 5 tons, stuff like that. There's guys on there that'll even buy, Vietnam-era military radios. What are you going to use it for? Absolutely nothing, but they'll spend a ton of money on these things. It's just that nostalgia.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, at the end of the day, I gained. If I could get the truck that I used to drive in the military and could afford to drive it, I probably would drive it, at least twice a week.
I love that even your dream truck isn't a daily driver. You're like, it's probably not something I want to drive every day, which is the way, honestly, most dream trucks end up. Almost all the builds I've seen just end up as something that you don't want to be in every day.
To be 100% honest, like my dream truck, all-out dream truck would be you guys' Thoroughbird. But that's out of my price range. Something like this is within my price range.
It's for sale, homie. I got a firm financing now.
Oh, I'm sitting in an 05 V71 right now. That's my daily.
See, you're good. Little trade-in, a little bit bigger, no big deal. Awesome.
Yeah, but the bank, aka my wife, wouldn't approve of that.
I've been there.
You've been with me long enough to know that water pump that looks like a snail is not a water pump. And it doesn't need to be replaced.
I dig it. Well, Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's great to finally get you on here so that we could get you on and talking about something that people have been asking for. Listeners, if you got a dream build and you want to walk me through it, include the parts, the pricing, the vehicle, the cost, why people use it, why somebody cares about it, record yourself on your phone and email it into us, or go ahead and post it on our Facebook pages, and we'll look at being able to use those in the future to do some more episodes like this. But for today, again, thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. It's my pleasure.
All right, man. Have a great day.
You as well.
All right, and now we're back. Chris, what did you think hearing Michael talk about an IDI build starting with a 6.2 base and an 80-something square body truck?
Let me take a deep breath. All right, no. Interesting. I mean, at the end of the day, you have certain people out there that are diehard fans for a specific brand or generation of vehicle, okay? And
Sure.
I think that, Michael really capitalized on some of that. Not a build I would do. Not an inviting thing for me. But he did hit on a couple things that I can't disagree with. There are a lot of square body fans out there.
Well, I was just going to say, do you remember? So we know a friend of the show, a great sponsor of the show, the Whirlies, Ryan's C10 build.
Yeah.
There's a truck that, like, the actual body lines in that truck itself, not that cool to me. But that truck with the finished build and what he's done to it and the way it is, over the top awesome. Now, they do great fab work and they have all of these resources to do it, and they're a great shop and did a great job with it. But I think I could understand that build more because there's all of this performance application.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the different – you look at the trucks, you look at, the square bodies, you look at a truck like Ryan Worley's or even Jason. Jason has a square body as well.
Yeah, he has one too.
And, we had one at the shop for some time. And the gentleman that we ended up selling that truck to, he's a diehard square body fan. Like, he has like 3 or 4.
Saw it at UCC, had to have it.
Yeah.
Mark Downing, big fan.
So, shout out to Mark, real good buddy. But there's a nostalgia, right, to certain body lines and certain, generations of trucks that, I could look at myself and think, growing up, my dad would always talk about like these cars from like the 70s and 80s, and like, I understand the muscle car era, right? Like, I respect that, but there were some cars in like the 80s that I'm like, those things are ugly. And my dad's like, oh, that's nasty. Like, I had one, this and that. I never understood. Fast forward 20 years. Now I'm in a scenario where there are cars from the 90s and the early 2000s that I'm like, oh, that's a good looking car. Completely outdated.
Name one car from the 90s or early 2000s that's good looking.
Like me, I really am a fan. Like, so import stuff like Nissan 350Zs, Infiniti G35s. I had one growing up. I like that car. They're not an attractive, appealing car now.
No,
but
not a cool looking car to today's standards.
Right, but that was an appealing car from from what era I'm from.
Right.
Okay. So I'm looking at like these square bodies and I'm thinking like, and Michael has a lot of experience in the military. So again, there's a little bit more of that, connection on that style vehicle.
Sure.
So I respect and understand that connection. Otherwise, like $5,000 vehicle, like I would rebuttal and say, now again, I'm a Dodge guy, right? I'm a Cummins guy. I would buy a first gen Dodge any day of the week. Love the body lines. I've had several of them. I see one driving down the road. I'm like, that shit's nasty.
Yeah, way to lean into that cum dog nickname, huh?
And the second gens too, like the second gens, perfect example. I grew up around those. I like those body lines. Other people, they're not a good looking truck. Like they're not. They're ugly as shit and they're very basic. So
the ugliest of all of the Cummins.
Honestly, I agree with that. But you take that first gen, you take that second gen, you find someone that is a diehard guy, and that would be the comparison of a square body Chevy. And then to go a step further, and it's not like we're talking square bodies with 350s, right? We're talking a square body with a 6.2 or a 6.5 diesel engine, which we all know isn't the most performance-friendly or performance-oriented engines.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah, and
it's
talking,
a nice way of phrasing that.
And talking to Michael, listening to him say, well, the 6.2 takes a shit. You could just swap a 6.5 in. Like, it's just no big deal. Like, hey, I'm going to go swap my underwear out. That's that's the way, he made it seem like it's just that simple, and it is. They bolt right in. Like, they really do. Sure. But, what's your take? Did he sell you?
No, I would never do this. It sounds like a terrible idea. Yeah, absolutely not. No.
But you respect it.
Listen. I respect Michael a lot, and I respect whenever somebody goes out and builds a passion project. I still think it's a stupid idea. I think you could build such a cooler truck for less money and go faster and have something more reliable and have something that looks better. But that's me. Let me paint a picture me with my terrible taste.
Let me paint a picture for you. You grew up in Southern Illinois on a farm. Your dad had that old square body farm truck that he would drive up and down the private drive every day. You would be in the passenger seat. You'd have your dog in the middle, right?
My dad drove a minivan when I was a kid. I don't want to go buy a minivan. Like, okay, I don't. Well, this is what I don't get.
I don't care about your broken past, Paul.
Everybody's parents drove something when they were a kid. Like, none of us grew up in horse and buggy country.
I can
so, like, what does that mean? Why do I want my dad's car? I don't get it.
You're looking at this all wrong
in a very logical way, and it's not a logical situation. I understand.
Your dad drove a minivan. You drive a fucking SUV. Okay,
right,
Dad.
Right, but it's not right. But it's not like oh man, I grew up and I remember my dad had this '97 Grand Caravan and we took a family trip on it, and now I really want to go restore a '97 Grand Caravan. Fuck no, I don't. No,
I
don't have any interest in that. You know why? Because I had all the experience in that vehicle, and that vehicle sucked. I didn't get to drive it. Like
well, I'm just saying I can see some personal connections to certain vehicles based on opinions and experiences at an earlier age, and I could see that being one of the motivators for someone who would want to do a restoration project or want to get into something like that.
Listen, I'm clearly just joking around. I totally understand the nostalgia.
And you were talking about buying a fucking minivan, so
not true. I don't think in a while. No, listen, like it's not my cup of tea, and that's fine. I do understand it. I understand the concept behind it. Again, I think it's also factual to say that if you wanted anything else, it would probably be easier and cost less money. But yeah, it's a
well, let's touch on that. Let's talk about the economical side of it. Okay, the economics around it.
$20,000.
You buy the truck, buying the truck for $3,000 to $5,000, and then you put that type of money into it, like that
to get to 300-400 horsepower.
Hey, you know what? I mean, maybe it's not the horsepower play. Let's just cut the horsepower play out of it. But you want an updated power output, right? You don't want no 100 horsepower. You need a little more.
We've done the 15K budget build episode.
Yeah, we have.
So like we've had this question in a very serious way. Last year at Duramax Tuner, we did Tyler Franzen with the budget build truck, $15,000. So go buy a really nice LBZ and then throw $15,000 at it. We've seen what budget builds do. None of them ever hit the budget. In the real world, anytime you build a budget build, you always blow past your budget. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a joke to start with. And two, you can't call this a budget build. Like if you got $20,000 to spend unfinanced, so in other words, you have $20,000 in cash.
Either you are the worst
and you
decision maker in
chose
your
to go
life.
do this truck.
Yes.
Again, it has to be a nostalgia.
Yeah.
It has to be I love this and I have the passion for this, and this is my
and
dream.
I have the know-how of restoration and
Yeah.
the mechanics. Like there are so many. It's such a very small percentage of the listeners that we work, or, that listen to our show, or like people that we get the privilege of working with over at Calibrated Power, that would even be considering something like this.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, though, mad props, mad respect. I mean, he did his homework. He knows his shit.
If I can't get tuning from Duramax Tuner, fab parts from WC Fab, and fuel systems from Exergy, it's probably not a build for me.
Okay, I mean, I agree to disagree on that. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I agree. All great companies in the market, they can definitely get you taken care of.
Here's my thing: is that I want to rein it in here just to remind everyone that this is mostly because of the performance side of it, right? Like I could never see building a vehicle strictly for the nostalgia. Like the only way I would ever get into dumping a bunch of my personal money into horsepower is for horsepower, or into a vehicle is for horsepower. I do think there's a few other topics that I thought we should talk about this week, Chris. There's been some pretty big news going on in diesel performance. And we've always been ones to kind of talk about this news in a very open and honest way. And so we wanted to jump into the news that broke with the EPA and Corey Willis at PPEI coming to a settlement. It's no secret here. I think everybody in diesel performance is talking about it right now. Yeah. They got whacked with some NOVs. They've been fighting it for a long time. It sounds like that has come to the end of its rope. They now are only offering emissions-equipped tuning calibrations. No more delete tunes.
Yeah.
Chris, now you are in a customer interaction type of a role here at Duramax Tuner on the day-to-day, so you're somebody who I think is an industry insider. What has the impact been this past week, now that we're recording 7 days after the announcement was initially made on Facebook?
I'm tired. I am tired. I deal with a lot of people on a day-to-day, and this week is nothing short of amazing to me as far as how someone or a company can post a couple of posts and everyone can interpret that information differently.
And that's why I wanted to hit this, because the post was specific to PPEI, was not a general blanket statement for the entire industry. No. And I think that's one of the things I've seen interacting with people on Facebook and YouTube. A lot of people seem to think that this somehow implied, or this was saying that there is now no custom tuning available for any diesel trucks. That is not true. That is not the situation. You absolutely still can get custom tuning for your diesel truck, as long as it's supported by the custom tuner. The only caveat to that is no delete tunes. That's just going to get harder and harder and harder to find somebody willing to take the risk. The initial estimates I saw, or at least the initial number I saw published, was a $1.1 million fine was just doled out. There's not a lot of small businesses out there that can afford to cover a $1.1 million fine. So just as you're asking companies to provide you a delete tune, let's be real about what that is.
So let's dive into it, okay? Like you said, no bullshit, just being upfront. PPEI, Corey Willis, they make this post, right? Every end user, every enthusiast that's out there that reads that thinks that this was an overnight thing. This has been years in the making.
Yeah. Okay.
This is something that, is people within the industry, right? Different companies and things like that, they have a little bit more information, right? That gets shared. But this is something that has been ongoing. This isn't something where one day they wake up and they go, you know what, like.
Yeah, they don't knock on your door and drop off the fine, right? It's something. Corey's been pretty public about how he has been fighting some of the aspects of this, and we know some other guys that have gotten hits with NOVs, notice of violations from the EPA, and they, in general, I don't know about PPEI's exact time frame, but other companies we know of have taken 3 to 4 years to get through the process from being handed a notice of violation to actually settling the circumstances.
Now, with that being said, we're not them. I'm going to let the rest of that kind of be its thing.
Yeah.
But what does the future look like, right? They have been public about, hey, you know what, no more deletes. We're going to do emissions on. You know, Corey's made it very vocal where his passion is racing in off-road style tuning, but he is going to invest the time and energy into emissions on and that support. I respect that.
Hey, man, come join the game. We've been playing this game for a while by
Right.
ourselves. We kind of feel like being custom tuners who provide emissions-equipped tunes. We've always kind of said we're out here on this island by ourselves. We're glad to see other people come in and join us, man. Like, this works.
Yeah,
This
and
works.
Now, as far as the reception that I've had from end users, like with that foundation, I've had guys calling, screaming, and yelling at me like I shot their dog. I've had guys who have heard of us, thought we did emissions off tuning for some reason, and then I have to inform them that we don't. I've had people that have been receptive in hearing and understanding different options.
Yeah.
I've had people where they're willing to spend whatever money they can to buy tunes today because they interpreted that custom tuning is no longer available. So, guys, the thing that you need to keep in mind is this. Custom tuning, okay? You can go and buy a Box Programmer, an Edge, Banks, Bully Dog. There's a lot of good options out there, right?
Yeah.
Custom tuning, like what we offer, yes, it's custom. We have all of the ECM parameters to modify. Just because I'm not offering you delete tunes doesn't mean it's not custom, okay? I have the same parameters, if not more parameters in our support to offer. I'm just not shutting off the emissions codes. I like my job. We like where we work. We want to grow as an organization. We want to offer a quality product to the industry. But deleting the truck is unfortunately not really the route to go moving forward.
And I think we're going to start to see this because other companies out there are also in this same sort of pressure where we all have to provide emissions-equipped solutions that meet federal regulations. I always have guys ask, well, I don't get emissions testing where I live. There's no emissions laws in my county or my city. Yeah. What would I – well, hey, listen, man, we all live in America. We all follow federal laws. So ish. So now we're going to have more and more companies offering emissions-equipped solutions, which means we expect to see an explosion of new products to help the reliability of your truck. And I think that's been one of the real drivers of why guys want to delete is they feel that they don't have the reliability in their vehicle anymore. They feel the emissions equipment has cost them that trust that they had built with a given brand. And that's true to some extent. I get it. I drive an emissions-equipped truck. You drive an emissions-equipped truck. We understand what that is when you do get a DEF light coming on or check engine light coming on. You feel like you want to never have this again. But we're going to start to see the R&D and the money be invested instead of into who's got the shiniest exhaust tip to more into who's got the most reliable truck. And we're going to see that push. I think it's going to be great for consumers in the long run.
Yeah, no, there was something I was going to say and it slipped my mind, Paul.
Well, it must have been really important.
It was really important. Really important.
Tell you what, we can plug it into next week's episode. I just wanted to wrap up here with a real quick reminder for everybody. Diesel Power Challenge. Get your trucks in. Get them voted on. If you are submitting your truck to be voted on for Diesel Power Challenge, we want to have you on the show. We want to talk about your truck. We want to give you some early exposure. We want to try to get some followers out there and get some people behind you. Shoot us a message. Jump on to Diesel Performance Podcast Q&A Facebook group or shoot us a message at our Diesel Performance Podcast Facebook page. I handle the replies there, so I'll try to make sure we book you guys just as quickly as we possibly can. For today, this has been Paul Wilson.
And Chris Emke.
Thanks for listening.
And you were talking about buying a fucking minivan, so
Not true. Not true.